think there's just actual demons in the north.
Oh, okay. Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. I say welcome because honestly we have never checked out anything from Arknights ever before. This is going to be our first ever video. For those of you who are familiar with the channel, you're like, 𝗔𝗟𝗟, what are you doing? What are you doing, bro? Hey man, I check out video game lore, okay? Well, I have my issues with gacha systems. That doesn't mean that I can't enjoy a cool story.
100%.
Which I have heard that Arknights does have, and from what I know for sure, is that Arknights has really good music. I have heard some of those tracks, they're awesome.
Definitely.
I never really played the games though, but yeah.
I recently have really got into Arknights and have been playing it every day, so... I kind of was like, 𝗔𝗟𝗟, how do you feel about doing some Arknights lore?
Out of some personal curiosity on your end, I will say that I am kind of intrigued by Enfield and the whole like factory system and building the world and whatnot. I think I would enjoy those sort of aspects.
I haven't looked too much into Enfield yet. I've kind of just been leaving that blind for me because I do want to check it out when it eventually comes out fully. So my knowledge is very limited at the moment since I only just got into it. I've been playing the game myself. Not Enfield, the original, I guess. I don't know what you call it. And I've been watching a bunch of lore videos on my own. But it's kind of hard. There's a lot of them, but none that are like super clearly like this is a definitive one you should check out to get into Arknights. And I feel like that's just because Arknights lore is so
expensive,
big. It's hard to make that. I don't know. So I'm taking even just for myself to check out. I'm open to recommendations.
Yeah. So if you have any directions for us to go in, if you want to see more from us, please do let us know in the comments. And before we get into this reaction, please make sure to go support the original creator. A link to that will be at the very top of the description, like always.
Give them love.
Give them a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into this.
Hey fellow netizens, Plus here. So, you want to visit Terra, a world we have only experienced at the tip of our finger, a world where a kingdom of chivalry and knighthood could turn into a corporate dystopian, where God-conquering China and the demon power-wielding Soviet Union don't quite get along.
What is happening in this world, bro? What the fuck? Okay, I've heard of a lot of things, like, oh, this story is going to be centered around themes like this. And then I just heard 5 or 6 different themes that stories would normally focus on in the same world. What is going on?
Yeah, and the best part is they're very interconnected too. It's like I heard a different video talking about how like in a lot of gacha games, right? You've got this is like the European area, this is the Chinese area, right? And they're very much those kind of segmented countries. In Arknights, all these different cities and countries and kingdoms and everything, their history is interconnected. You've got people conquering other people who then separate off to go do their own things, and like you can't have the history of one without the history of all the others, which is really cool.
That's interesting. I understand from a functional and design perspective why you would want to segment them. But I suppose in reality, when it comes to history, there's always going to be influences like that from other cultures. Like, especially, like say, here in Southeast Asia, there are some architectures here in Thailand that were influenced by, oh, when the neighboring countries invaded this particular area, and then they brought some of their culture here, but then when we defended them back and took the place back, then, you know, that's kind of the local culture there now. It's a little bit different, but it still has the signs of that. So yeah, that's pretty cool that Arknights emulates some of that as well.
A world where angelic people were liberated through sweets and guns, where their ancient brethren are the most discriminated against amongst all races. Terra is probably one of the most complex and realistic fictional worlds I've ever consumed. And I choose the word consume not because I like it, it is because Arknights is not just a game, it is a glorified visual novel with absurdly high production costs, along with a ton of adjacent media to enrich its own characters and world building, such as the character theme, songs that only exist outside of the game, official posts, some are more cryptic than others, but all of them share the same trait, that is the exploration of the world of Terra from
Oh, you don't say, fan of 𝗔𝗟𝗟 and I, the Somnium Files. I see you.
a unique angle or different timeline, ARG, aka Alternate Reality Game, is also an adjacent element that exists in Arknights media, which has hidden pieces of lore. Even web event and manga that cover small but important details can solidify the world building. The world of Arknights has been evolving ever since the game was released back in 2019. Countless main and side stories have been added throughout the years.
More than I thought Arknights had been around a lot longer than that. Because I feel like I've always seen it like on and around like the character designs and people talking about it. It's actually not new at this point, but newer than I thought.
I tried it, I think, near release or on release. I love tower defense, but there was just something about it, or maybe my attention got diverted by something else at the time, so I never really played more of it. I feel like Arknights as a gacha game just isn't like in the upper echelons or like what I see usually being reported on in mainstream. However, it's always had like a dedicated audience to it. Potentially primarily because of how much world building there is and how many cool characters there are. I would have to assume.
I mean, the characters were what drew me to it to start playing. And then learning about the world and everything else has definitely got me kind of sunk in and completely invested now.
Yeah. And knowing from, or well, I guess seeing the little bits and pieces of Enfield that I have seen, I am just incredibly intrigued because the world looks so interesting with how they've set things up, and the music too that goes along with it. It's just like telling such a story that I just don't know about.
0.6 million words make up the total of the readable media in Arknights.
6 million,
or in other
Jesus.
words, it would take an average person over 90 hours to read through all of it. You can also view the entire lore of Arknights as 4 times the entirety of the Lord of the Rings. But what actually makes a great world building? What actually makes us want to visit Terra, despite the fact that all of us know how hazardous, apocalyptic and dystopian Terra really is? Are we at zero sanity? A world doesn't just pop up out of nowhere with all of its different nations. People don't just magically have specific traits for no particular reason. A nation doesn't wage war against one another just for the thrill of it, otherwise it would feel very unnatural. What makes the world building of Arknights so fascinating is how they have both otherworldly fantasy elements and realistic conflicts between people and nations at the same time, as if the game has stripped out one of the cruelest sections from our history books and put it into a fantasy world.
Honestly, all the things this dude is saying, I really love.
Yeah.
This is something that I absolutely love about another series called Battletech, which is set in like the future. It's in space, but my main draw to it is how realistic all the portrayals are of the characters, of the nations, of the relationships with each other, the reasons why people go to war. That political intrigue is everything that I love from media. So I'm hoping that Arknights has a lot of that, and it's seeming to shape up to that.
It is probably the closest of world building to the likes of Game of Thrones, with all the different nations and their conflicts, how the history of some nations still haunts them in the present day, how some past events are connected with present international affairs, how certain nations used to be superpower but fell into obscurity, how there are world-ending threats but nobody gives a fuck about because everyone is busy dealing with their own shit. As you can see,
I mean, yeah. When you're stuck within like this deadlock of all these military nations surrounding you, like, and nobody's gonna really agree to work together on this, because what if it's like some sort of ulterior motive, some sort of plan to get us to leave here to take our stuff, you know? It's tough, man. It's tough, and I get it. This would happen exactly like this if this were the case, but it sucks.
The world building of Arknights is quite complicated, and one can easily lose themselves in this giant labyrinth, which is why, to make the visit to this god-forsaken world more attractive, I've made this guide video to travel through every nation, to take a deep dive into each nation's unique history while admiring their sightseeing. Why? Because you clicked on this video, because you are curious, because you want to visit Terra. Although before we go, there are 4 basic but very important things that you need to hear. The world of Arknights has a lot of similarities with our world. However, there are a few things which make Terra a lot more different, despite its similarities in culture and nations. The main energy source for almost every nation is a dark crystalline substance called originium. Originium is often found in nature, in the aftermath of big catastrophes, or grows on living beings. There are
We
3
were talking
places
about
on Terra.
watching King of Fighters earlier. How cool crystals are just as an aesthetic, right?
Oh, yeah,
just
yeah.
the lances with the giant black crystals jutting out are really cool.
It's a really neat aesthetic that I think a lot of the more like sci-fi series have picked up on. Because you can see stuff like that too in like Transformers 1 when they're on like the surface of the planet Cybertron. And like the planet itself is constantly transforming and shifting, and there's a lot of like these crystal like formations that grow out of it. Yeah, it's just a cool as fuck aesthetic to see. So I'm glad that we're leaning into it. And it's also like lore relevant too. It's not just random rock formation.
Super lore relevant.
Where the density of originium is extremely high. These spots are called prime veins, and only a few nations can claim to be truly profiting from those. Why that is because originium is often found in a very active state. It is flammable, explosive, and can even grow over time if not contained correctly. This leads us to the second big factor on Terra, catastrophes. Just like in our world, catastrophe is nature's wrath in its purest form. Earthquakes, sandstorms, floods, blizzards, and meteor showers, to just name a few. In the world of Arknights, the word catastrophe is branded with a different kind of fear. These are oftentimes way bigger and more destructive than the catastrophes in our world. Catastrophes on Terra can easily wipe out an entire city within a day, and even if you somehow survive it, you are likely not going to survive the aftermath of it. As I mentioned earlier,
I see. So basically, this shit sucks. We're probably gonna die.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, as a fan of Warhammer, I guess I do love me some grim darkness in my fantasy settings. So
active originium can be found right after a big catastrophe. Why is active originium bad? This leads us to the third point: getting infected. An incurable disease known as 𝗏𝙏𝙪. If you get in contact with active originium, you are likely to get infected. Originium density will slowly become denser in your blood circulation. After a long time, solid crystals would grow inside your body and eventually even on your skin, causing great pain to the point of the inability to move or breathe. Aside from all of these negative traits, infected people don't need to use a magic medium to cast art. Oh right, arts is the magic system on Terra, also known as originium arts. In some nations it is akin to magic, while in others it is viewed as a scientific field. But on the grimmer side, infected people experience great prejudice. Some nations mistreat them worse than others. There are places where they
damn. This is just the Japanese people from the Guilty Gear series.
Send them to forced labor camps, while other states prohibit them from practicing specific work or entering certain areas. The crystal on the host's body grows even after death. I wonder what we can do with those crystals. It sure would be a waste to throw them away. Anyway, you are definitely wondering how civilizations can even survive in such a harsh environment, a world filled with never-ending catastrophes, incurable diseases, and dangerous but profitable resources. How do nations manage to survive, let alone prosper in this world, to the point to even have golden ages or become world-dominating superstate? Well, in the world of Arknights, it is a common practice to build cities on gigantic moving platforms. These are being dubbed nomadic cities.
That is really fucking cool.
It is such a cool concept.
I love this concept so much. Yeah. It reminds me of another sci-fi series that I enjoy too. I'm gonna bring up a lot of examples here because I could see some inspirations being taken from here and there. I would assume that, you know, Homeworld Deserts of Kharak got a lot of inspiration from Dune, which is a series that I haven't learned about or seen yet.
But I haven't either. I've heard good things about Dune.
Dune, I feel like, has been like the cornerstone of so many sci-fi series, especially anything that has to do with the desert. Like, that's pretty obvious. But these moving platform cities is a concept there too, I'm pretty sure. As well as, I suppose, literally any sandworm in fiction probably came from Dune. So there you go.
Nomadic cities can avoid being in the center of an approaching catastrophe by relocating itself in time. This
get the fuck away. Just run.
Because of the tremendous amount of energy originium can provide. Now that I have told you the basics of this world, we will be heading right into it. Our first stop is Ursus, aka You Are Sus. Actually it means bear, since the majority of its population are Ursine. In the ancient times, the nation was known as the Empire of Hippogriff, but the old Tsar was overthrown due to the elite's racist behaviors towards the lower class, which were primarily the Ursine people. After the coup, the nation was filled with pride and nationalism, which was the perfect combination for world domination. So, the newly proclaimed Ursus Empire started to expand westward to gain more land and resources to fuel their continued expansionism.
Ursus is the biggest of the countries?
That's what it looked like when we saw earlier the world map. Ursus was much bigger than everybody else, far in the north too. Probably just harsh conditions. I would imagine it's a situation where if anybody else tried to go to war with them, they just have more people, plus their environment is not very hospitable.
And while they were at it, they also oppressed small tribes and nations along the way. There was nothing the Ursus Empire hadn't fought against throughout their history of conquest. Mythical godlike beings, demons from the north, and knights with guns. The only nation that proved to be a real obstacle was Casimir's, the land of the knights. Nonetheless, the Ursus Empire proved themselves to have the strongest military amongst all nations by expanding so much.
Gotcha. I'm assuming, what was it, Casimius or something like that? Having the knights were just like, we just have an elite trained military force. So even if you have more numbers, we're just a little bit better in combat.
Much that it has become the biggest nation on Terra, even to this day.
Yeah.
They really loved to throw spears at their enemies, having the tankiest defenders to stop anyone from making a dent into their positioning, while mortars can attack from afar, and artillery targeteers made sure the artillery hit every single one of their targets.
It is really funny that all this epic lore is being told, and this is the gameplay.
It's so cute.
Little chibi characters, tower defense style. Oh man.
I've never really played a tower defense game. I've been having fun with it.
I'm glad that you have. Maybe it's because it was tower defense where I kind of just like ended up bouncing off of it. So I'm hoping Enfield will fix that. So far it's been pretty cool, yeah.
Until they died, a very miserable death. The army of Ursus spread fear all across Terra quite equally, by not only killing foes, but also their own civilians. The testimony of Terra during Ursus' strength's heyday goes like this. 5 groups of shieldmen can slaughter a squad of knights, 4 royal guards can wipe a settlement off the map, 3 Wendigos can conquer a small town, 2 army groups can decimate a duchy, 1 sovereign can throw the world into chaos. And this is excluding their most feared soldiers, the Emperor's Blade. They are literally the blade of the Tsar and would execute His Majesty's will at any given time. These fellows covered in mask use the demon power in combination with their near inhuman capabilities in combat and are mostly feared for their dark forms. If you see one, they might start a conversation like this. Take my advice, kill yourself. But with great...
Better to do that than what I'm about to do to you. Oh, Jesus. Okay, bro.
Power comes great responsibility, and that wasn't Ursus' strength. They usually put the people from newly conquered nations into their gulags. Their own citizens aren't treated any better because most of their resources go into its military effort. The Ursus population lived in a poor condition, and just like in the old days, the Ursus revolted again, this time putting an end to the brutal military regime. All of this happened because none of the elites really learned anything from history.
I mean, yeah, we took down the Tsar, we had pride and nationalism, and we basically just did the same exact thing over again. Which I feel like happens in history way too much.
A lot, yeah. It's like, we took down this horrible dictator and we put in a new horrible dictator.
Let's go! We did a thing! Yeah!
I mean, why learn from history when you can just repeat it? Anyway, the new rebellion brought big changes. Now all Ursine are equal, but some Ursine are more equal than others. Ursus...
I love all my children equally. I just love a few more equally than others. So, yeah, there you go.
has turned from an expansionist nation into a more open and conservative one. Its new ruling class are a new generation of intellectuals and royalties who seek to modernize the nation. This does sound pretty good, right? So what do you think the Ursus of today would look like? Well, it still inherits a strong nationalism, and the discrimination against the infected has gotten even worse ever since the incident in 𝗔𝗟𝗪. Basically, an infected group called Reunion rallied together to riot, took over the entire nomadic city of 𝗔𝗟𝗪 and drove towards 𝙏𝙤𝙪. When I heard the news, this was my honest nuclear reaction. Oddly enough, even after the city was lost, it was still sending out a strong signal that it belonged to the Ursus Empire. Sounds like a skill issue to me. I bet it was simply a malfunction when Reunion took it over. Let's move on to our next stop, the Great Yen.
When you start the game, you're in Ursus fighting against Reunion people.
Oh, interesting. So you're a part of Ursus, or you're just there?
No. You're part of a faction called 𝗔𝗟𝗟, which are basically a bunch of infected who are trying to, like, actually like help people and make a difference, rather than just rebelling and causing chaos like Reunion.
What's up, Beijing? Welcome to the Great Yen, one of the oldest nations on Terra. It is an imperial monarchy ruled by an emperor, and there are 6 ministries.
I have to say, I love how they mix like the traditional architecture, Chinese architecture that you'd see, with this modern infrastructure, with things that would make sense for this sort of world. That is really cool art design, art direction, I guess just design in general, yeah.
Every time I see pictures of like the environments, like the cities and everything, they all just look so cool.
They have a really good art team behind them.
As one of the oldest nations, Yen has preserved all of its traditional culture from its prehistoric dynasties and is now on their way to fully embrace modernization.
By prehistoric dynasties, how far are we into the future? Like, is Terra actually like actual Earth? And we're just super far in the future? Or is this just a fantasy world with its own date and time and year?
I don't know numbers, but I know the people of Terra are newer because the doctor, the character you play as, is one of 2, I think, because him and the priestess are the only people who are not like animal people. And they're from like a previous world to the current occupants of Terra, more or less.
So what, were you just like in cryostasis until now?
So there was an event that kind of went into a lot of the Doctor's backstory, kind of, that I watched a video on called Babel. And I am probably not the right person to try and summarize it. But basically, the Doctor and the priestess were like part of the people who like created Originium to begin with.
Oh.
Oh,
okay.
And shit went down kind of, and Doctor got put in cryostasis. He got woken up by, I think her name's 𝗏𝗏𝗏. I'm not sure.
The bunny girl that we see at the very beginning?
No, different character.
Oh, okay.
And so she woke up the Doctor, and the Doctor met the bunny girl, but when she was really young. And went on adventures and stuff and started kind of this whole, like, getting to know Terra in its current state. But then he also kind of had his history with what he was originally doing with Originium and, like, his plans that he originally had. And he kind of got torn between wanting to, like, be a part of the current Terra versus going back to his original plan. And he ended up going back to his original plan, which was part of the tragedy of Babel. I don't remember how it happened, but got knocked out again, put back in like cryostasis, had his memories erased. So then he wakes up again with Amiya older and no longer has the memories of like way back then, and is basically experiencing Terra for the first time as a blank slate. And that's the version of the Doctor you play as in Arknights.
Interesting. So we basically act as like a super being of sorts that gets woken up every now and then to make a major change in the era that we're in, and then probably put back into stasis for further storytelling purposes in the future.
Not quite, but that's kind of what ends up happening in those two cases. It's not necessarily the intention of the Doctor, it's just kind of what happened.
What happens to him every single time, brother. I guess it's a unique twist on the wake up with amnesia storyline that is so common.
Because it was done intentionally, because the reason the tragedy happened was because he, was holding on to the original state before it became the Terra that we knew it of. And so I think her name was Teresa. I apologize, Arknights. I am only been playing this for like a month and I'm still learning things. So correct me. But she basically wanted him to kind of remake his decision that he made there, but without all of his previous things weighing his decision in a certain direction. So she just which kind of makes a new bias towards Terra because that's all he knows then at that point.
Gotcha. That seems like a lot of details that we're not exactly going to be covering in this video. Thank you for answering my questions, though. That just makes me even more curious. There's just so many facets to the world we're going to learn about.
Like, that was like a super cool event from when I was going through it. But yeah.
The gigantic agricultural nomadic city 𝗏𝙤𝙪𝙧𝙜𝙪, which is able to feed almost the entire population of 𝘏 on its back, and their international financial powerhouse 𝙏𝙤𝙪 are just a few shining examples of 𝘏's way to progress and prosper. In fact, 𝘏 has been known as one of the most stable nations on Terra, since it never really got involved in any warfare with other nations throughout its entire history. 𝘏 would also send out envoys to neighboring nations to settle war-related matters, of course with the attempt to achieve its own political agenda. Aside from the stable and peaceful land, 𝘏 is also known for its unwavering economic monopoly in the world of Terra. The 𝙏𝙤𝙪 dollar, a currency that is very widely accepted amongst all around Terra, simply because of its stability. It is so widely used that it is being viewed as Terra's main currency. But 𝘏 wasn't always like this. Before the dawn of the Common Era, 𝘏 was ruled by merciless gods, also known as Pharaohs. Always in awe and terror, these Pharaohs reigned over the people of 𝘏 with their miracle-creating powers that just bent over the laws of nature effortlessly. But the Emperor had a dream. He wanted the humans to govern for themselves. One day, 𝘏ese scholars found bones of ancient Pharaoh corpses. Were these dead Pharaohs similar to their rulers? Did they had any connections with them? Nonetheless, one thing was clear to the current emperor: their masters were not so immortal after all.
Damn.
So he decided to plot an assassination against his own deities. This act was then dubbed as the Great Hunt by Terra historians of the modern era. They used ancient rituals as an excuse to gather all the heavenly beings to one spot, to kill them all at once. To do so, the Emperor secretly gathered the biggest army around the deities, and they started the slaughter by killing the weakest first.
No.
The slaughter turned into a full-scale war between man and god, and it looked really bad for 𝘏, but in the midst of it all, one of the Pharaohs, 𝗏𝙗, the one closest to humans, decided to fight against his brethren. This was the turning point of the war, but in actuality, 𝗏𝙗's true intentions was very selfish. He wanted to rule over 𝘏 alone by helping the Emperor.
I see. I mean, there's always going to be a catch, right? Especially when it comes to gods. They likely have more plans than you could even fathom or our human minds can even think of.
To slay every single one of his brethren until none was left, and while the 𝘏ese army was exhausted from all the fighting, he would take the chance and strike when they were at their weakest. However, the Emperor was aware of the plan and prepared countermeasures beforehand. Basically, the Great Hunt was a backstabbing contest to see who can backstab
that's
the
what
most.
it seemed like.
I bet even 𝗏𝙗 forgot on whose side he was fighting anymore, and ever since that day, 𝘏 was known as the nation that slayed gods.
I think that's pretty epic.
𝗏𝙗 was not completely defeated though. He was split into 12 fragments, 12 weaker Pharaohs, so to say. Each of them have their own ideals, their own personality, and their own unique autism. 𝘏, a spice-loving extrovert who can create anything from weapons to entire nomadic cities out of thin air. She also makes shitty movies and likes to be around places where big things happen. Dusk, probably the best.
Okay, so To make sure that I'm still on track, this was the god that did the backstabbing, right? Just shattered into several fragments.
The 12 parts. Yeah.
Okay, and that's why
these different characters
have like more draconic features to them because they were the dragon deity thing. Yeah.
There's like 2 dragon races in Arknights. There's one that's more like Eastern dragons and one that's more Western dragons.
Gotcha. I mean, we're taking
also wyverns. That's their own race too.
Oh, of course. We're taking everything and mashing them together in new and unique ways.
Wife you can wish for, because she is so socially awkward that she only interacts with her painting, quite literally. She has made a world through her painting. Once you enter this world, it really makes you wonder who is real. There are only 2 kinds of introvert, the oh no people guy and the ill people guy. She belongs to the later specimen. In Twilight's Embrace, 𝗏 takes her place. She is the most mature one compared to the other 2 sisters, a strategist with wisdom and grace. With pen in hand, she crafts her rhyme, a poet who bends both space and time. Her goblet filled, she drinks with ease, yet her mind remains sharp, like a breeze. Drunk or sober, none can tell, for in her dreams she casts a spell. Reality raps at her command, in a world where dragons stand. Enemies falter, lost in her sway, as 𝗏 leads the drunk dance, night and day. Forever poised, forever keen, she's always being chilling.
Okay, bad props to this dude for sticking to the bit for so long. Like, holy hell, I was wondering what that was gonna end. I thought it was gonna be like a line or 2. No, not at all, the entire bit. Hell yeah, dude.
𝗔𝗟𝗟. He is the world's strongest kung fu fighter. Through his immortal life, he has mastered all the fighting styles. People know him primarily for doing nothing but working out and training.
Bro. The strongest martial artist in the world. Doing aerobic dance videos. Imagine. Oh my goodness. I mean, he's adapting to the times, I suppose.
Dude is literally living his artisan to its fullest. We have turned all of his techniques into consumable copy pasta. Shoo, welcome to the rice field, motherfucker, for we will be harvesting these crops. Here is where we people sow. She is the flattest mother figure, but definitely not the least fertile. She is the sole reason why yen is able to feed its growing population.
I see.
Let's finally take a look at yen in our current day and age. Thanks to yen's geographical location, it is far away from the Terran heartland, which means it never gets involved in any bloody conflict between the many nations there. Throughout the centuries, it had its consistent population growth and resources to prosper, which is why it has become a laid-back superpower on Terra by
Oh, we have the dragon over here making sure that everybody's making the land fertile. Gotta grow the food properly.
Those characters there look like the cow people, so I'm wondering if the cows also live there? I'm not sure.
I don't know. I'd assume so. I don't know anything about this world, though. But,
I don't know.
another question that comes to my mind is there some form of population control? Considering that the space that we can live on and the food that we can grow is somewhat limited.
I wonder if the just environments itself with Oripathy and the catastrophes aren't enough just population control on their own.
Yeah, I'm wondering. Well, we seem to be avoiding conflict, but maybe the environment itself will just kill us naturally anyway, so like...
I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
Simply minding its own business. In addition, some of the 12 fragments of Sui are helping the Yen Empire to prosper. Nien can build the empire whatever they need, whether it is new nomadic cities for the growing population or worlds ranging through...
Oh, okay, well there you go, just build more cities. Easy. I guess we're not necessarily lacking the resources for that. I thought it was a scenario of like, we have these fortress cities and we don't have any more, so we can only live on these, yeah. Never mind.
Entire nation border to defend threats from the north. To Nien, it is all a very trivial task. Shu, on the other hand, is the one making sure that the agriculture flourishes every year so that the growing population is getting fed. 𝗔𝗟𝗟 has been training the Yenese soldiers for as long as he has gained consciousness and defended threats from the north. What that threat exactly is will be covered in part 2. 𝗏. What did she actually contribute to Yen? She was a great strategist who also defended Yen from northern threats, that's for sure.
What's in
but
the
she
north?
mostly did
Ursus?
philosophical thinking and sophisticated drinking. After all, philosophy
I
is
also know.
best
I think
viewed
there's
through
just actual demons in the north.
Oh. Okay.
a lens made from the bottom of an empty bottle. And dusk is a competitive hikikomori, nothing more, nothing less. All in all, Yin has managed to turn a few of the 12 fragments on their side, and is using them as multiple cheat codes in their Civilization 6 session. But not every fragment is working so obediently under the Yen government. There are a few other fragments lurking in the shadows, working against the current regime. Every year, one of them would come out and play a game of 𝗏𝗏𝗪 against the Emperor, and if he wins, he gets to go out into the land and spread chaos. Honestly, if it were by me, I'd just have flipped the table. Their endgame is to bring all 12 fragments together, so they can revive the 𝗏𝗏𝗪 once more. This is extremely concerning, because if 𝗏𝗏𝗪 gets revived, it is likely going to turn Yen upside down, and might even become a world-ending threat.
The revival of a god who backstabbed the other gods to enslave the rest of mankind, their people. Yeah, I think that would be a bad idea. Let's not do that.
It probably wouldn't end great, yeah.
Yeah.
It is what I'm worried about. It's definitely not because we would lose all 12 waifus and husbandos if 𝗏𝗏𝗪 is completed. Why would I even think that? Anyway, if we are traveling through the Great Yen, then there's one place
Not
we
the
simply
waifus
cannot
and
miss out on,
husbandos.
and that is Lungmen, the economic powerhouse of Yen. It is a gigantic nomadic city that has special financial perks, which benefits Yen's total economical growth. Its modernized super metropolis is anything but traditional. You can find the most hip clothing brands from all across Terra, from giant districts of world-renowned companies such as Raytheon, Rhinelab, and Mama John's, to
Mama
totally
John's.
trustworthy detective agency. There's anything in this restless city. A city where you can witness an epic rap battle between a rat and a penguin, a place where
What?
you can have a date with your rat girlfriend in a Yenese restaurant, enjoying a hot xiaolongbao. Lungmen is one of the places where diversity flourishes. Oh, and when we are talking about diversity, they are just not so keen with the infected. But hey, I mean, they would simply ruin the business and prestigious image of the city. So it is totally understandable. If you wonder where all the infected went, well, honestly, you are asking the wrong person. But if I take a guess, they are probably living somewhere at the outskirts of the city, places where people wouldn't see them. Conveniently, nobody would notice a thing if they die by the hundreds. Anyway, enough with the minor inconveniences of
I love how he's just talking about this so nonchalantly too. I mean, yeah, I understand it. We're gonna go for the cyberpunkish aesthetic over here. Not completely, but like almost in that direction.
of using Originium. Let's look at the bright side, and with that I mean let's look at the different nation handling it. If it appears like a company, acts like a company, and smells like a company, then it is a company. Rimbilliton is a corporatocracy primarily known for its booming Originium mining industry. Its nature mostly consists of outbacks and deserts with its primary population of cultists. The birth of Rimbilliton was thanks to the age of colonization. Back in the days, the area was discovered to be close to one of the 3 prime vein, which consists of rich Originium sources. Every powerful nation sends their best expedition team.
I don't have any confirmation of this, but when you see the big map of like the different kingdoms, that each hex is like a different nomadic city. But I'm not positive on that. But that would make sense to me.
I think, yeah. It feels like it would make sense. I'm also quite curious why the veins are formed in the way that they are. I'm sure that there's a lore reason of like where they had originated and how they've grown from that specific origin to be in the shape that they are.
Yeah, I don't know.
But these are certainly things that you have to like think and consider in regards to if you're building a world that is trying to like emulate how reality would work, where the resources that each nation obtain will completely change the way their history and culture would work.
And mining companies in an attempt to claim the land for themselves. In the midst of the Originium
Victorian era,
the political situation between the superpowers in the Terran heartland began
kingdom just called Victoria.
Oh, okay, yeah. We gotta get all the aesthetics here, all the different ages.
Which made them shift their focus back on their homeland. The expeditioners and companies were all left to govern for themselves. What looked like a grim reality was actually a blessing in disguise, because at that time they bonded together.
They're wearing cones on their heads?
I haven't seen these guys playing the game myself, but I adore this outfit. It's beautiful.
Oh, that's great. It's awesome design. Yeah.
Formed a nation by declaring their sovereignty to all other countries. Of course, none of the superpowers in the Terran heartland would accept that without attempting to overthrow the 𝙏𝙤𝙪 government for a takeover. But because they were too busy with their own war games at that time, they could only send small forces to harass 𝙏𝙏𝙪ians. The superpowers met aggressive reactions and were repelled time and time again, until they finally learned their lesson and backed away. Well, except for Victoria, they are still trying to take control over the mining industry of 𝙏𝙏𝙪 and insert their sovereignty, and 𝙏𝙏𝙪ians were like, nice opinion, one small issue, I am bunny. British freelines, they are too full of themselves, even.
Honestly, I was gonna make the joke. It's like, yeah, the British-inspired nation trying to take over the companies in order to gain the resources. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry, we will get into that too. 𝙏𝙏𝙪 is still a self-governing corporatocracy, just less racist and more corporate. It has quadrupled its mining operations, however, with more originium mining comes more originium risks. A large portion of 𝙏𝙏𝙪's population are in fact infected. But worry not, because 𝙏𝙏𝙪 doesn't treat the infected as bad as Ursus, since they are aware that working in originium mines would easily result in getting uropathy, so they don't discriminate against the infected. Not from an ethical perspective at least, but from a corporate perspective. They are discarded if they can no longer provide value to the mining companies. Usually the infected would still get a big paycheck that can last them for a few months. Good luck finding a new job as an infected, I would say. Next stop is going to be a place that is known for its sportsmanship, home to chivalry and entertainment, a place that is near light. Welcome to 𝗏𝙪𝙪, the land of the knights. We talked about 𝗏𝙪𝙪s before. They were one of the only obstacles for Ursus' conquest. So, let's get to know the real deal. 𝗏𝙪𝙪s is basically Poland, if being a horse knight wielding arts makes you OP. A nation inhabited mostly by horse people, aka Kurantas. They occupied the vast grassland in the Terran heartland and is governed by a confederation of knight groups. The classical way to distribute power fairly amongst the governing organs of a nation. You could say it is a bit closer to democracy. Other nations like to refer to 𝗏𝙪𝙪s as the land of the knights and just. Ever since the beginning of 𝗏𝙪𝙪's history, it has been a place where the strong protected the weak, a place where chivalry and justice blossomed. But this...
Okay, you know, I was gonna say something stupid of like, you know, that guy kind of reminds me of Dimitri. Wait a minute. Yeah, duh, of course. The land of the knights? Bruh!
Who would have saw it coming?
Who could have seen this?
This nation did come with its own challenges. In its whole history, 𝗏𝙪𝙪s has faced countless brutal invasions from foreign powers, and it always questioned their ideology. Centuries ago, it was the Hippogriff Empire that never ended their harassment. These were actually quite easily repelled, and they eventually stopped trying to harass at 𝗏𝙪𝙪ian borders. And then came the Naimoran Khaganate, aka the Terran Genghis Khan. They beat the Hippogriff Empire to submission first and were after 𝗏𝙪𝙪s as a side dish. Hence, while the Hippogriff Empire stopped the harassment, it wasn't because they didn't want to. It was because the Great Khagan annihilated them. Khagan had a vision. He wanted to conquer the world. Now, how do I explain this so that modern people like you would get it? It was a coming-of-age tradition for all Naimoran tribes to go into uncharted places and bring back extraordinary tales to tell for their tribesmen. The Great Khagan...
I was like, this Khagans. A coming-of-age ceremony! Conquer the world! Oh, alright, I'll go do that, then I can come back and become a man, finally. Yeah, that was hardcore, bro.
Simply took it to an extreme level. He wanted to conquer everything. So, the Great Khagan and his Naimoran horde effortlessly beat the 𝗏𝙪𝙪ian knight army into submission. The governing knight group, the Pegasus, kneeled before the Great Khan and arranged a peace negotiation. This was one of the most humiliating chapters in 𝗏𝗪𝗪's history. Majority of its population grew extremely dissatisfied with the ruling Pegasus and eventually united under the goal to remove them from their position of influence. The revolt started when the Neimoran campaign came to an abrupt end, with the sudden death of the Khagan in the far south. All went successful, and the new political system demanded the Knight to split their power and influence in a different way. They kept their political power, but had to turn a large portion of their wealth over to retinues. These people are referred to as merchants. They were given the task to manage the wealth. This went wrong in so many ways. The nation lived through a peaceful era in which the merchants grew more influential by the year, and by the time the nation formed a democratic system, the merchants had become such a powerful entity that they were able to control the economy of the nation.
Yeah, that's kind of what happens when you give somebody who's good with making money a lot of money. Maybe they end up being the ones to rule you, dude.
Merchants were always seen as lower-class citizens in the eyes of the knights, but now that the merchants have banded together to become one powerful and wealthy entity, they can no longer be ignored by the governing knight groups. The power struggle between the corporate faction and the governing knights was very polarized. The knights were in full control of the military, while the merchants had control over the economy of the nation. But one small factor broke the status quo. It was a calm Saturday afternoon. A hairless knight noble was holding an auction in hopes to sell his castle on a nomadic platform to the highest bidder. He invited his other noble friends. One after another, everyone placed their bet. But to everyone's surprise, it was not a nobleman that would offer the highest bid. It was his own retinue. This was very inspiring to the merchants. Why don't we just buy off the knights' land and military? They can't outbid us all. The knights had to renegotiate with the now powerful merchants and formed a new governing entity, the 𝗏𝗪𝗪's General Chamber of Commerce, in short KGCC. This was a sad day for the knights, but a good day for the merchants, and a good day for people like us, who love to spend money and consume. Everything has to be centered around making money. The first nation that is taking capitalism as their motto was born. Money ruled the nation. The knights only had one option: become a gear of the gigantic corporate machine. With this big change came the biggest shift in culture of 𝗏𝗪𝗪's. The nation has slowly but gradually abandoned their tradition. It is all about stonks and profit.
Oh, but I guess, like, we still have some of that tradition left, but in the form of sports entertainment instead.
Exactly.
War with a neighboring nation can solidify its own economic growth if it means sacrificing a large portion of its own knights. No more knights on the street, only dubsteps, 𝗏𝗪𝗪ian dubstep. The sound of capitalism and soulless consumerism is what makes up the 𝗏𝗪𝗪s of today.
Okay, not gonna lie, every single time capitalism is mentioned, I think of the Spider-Verse movies, and Spider-Punk saying, it's a metaphor for capitalism. Such a good moment.
Yes.
Man has forgotten true struggle, as well as those who require it to survive. The last knight left in this country has abandoned the nation in an attempt to slay the ocean. I think he went crazy after all that happened. But what about the good old tradition? What about being a noble knight and
like Lovecraftian horrors in the ocean, don't worry about it.
Oh, of course. So you can't just have a nice swim in the ocean without getting got by a Lovecraftian monster anymore. This shit sucks, man. It's so fascinating to see how their cultures shift and change due to decisions being made because of certain like wars and battles and economics and try to keep its identity still in a pretty realistic way to what we've seen in real life, right? Where a lot of these traditions are just passed down into like sports competitions now. Things that we did for, deciding rulers of nations are now just, played for fun. I don't know. I love this shit. There's probably so much more detail behind these specific things too. Because he did mention earlier
I can only imagine they're just like skimming through it and giving like surface level for each country because there's so many.
And I could already see like the plot threads connecting as to how things could have gone down exactly. But of course, we're getting through it because the video's already like what, an hour or 30 minutes long. trying to skim through it, also still being comedic and enjoyable, you know?
Fighting for justice. Would the good people of 𝗏𝗪𝗪s really forget about all the heroism and chivalry?
Yeah.
Would they forget about all the sacrifices the knights have committed to protect this land? Of course not, because Knight Sport is the best way to show the world that 𝗏𝗪𝗪s is indeed still the nation of knights. Introducing the Major. It is the biggest sport event on Terra, held every 3 years in the capital of 𝗏𝗏𝗪𝗏s. See it as a tournament arc where participants are organized into teams referred to as nightclubs. Successful clubs can be promoted to knight orders, but must maintain their performance to avoid demotion. It is simple, just keep on winning and you will never be forgotten. Independent knights can also compete, but are generally at a disadvantage compared to knights from well-funded clubs. High-performing knights in the Major may earn titles and get sponsorships from all sorts of established.
Genuinely though, yeah, this is how it would go. Like, if you have more money and you got the better tech, you're probably gonna end up winning. It's how it works in real sports too sometimes nowadays. Like, you just have, well, obviously there's gonna be a lot of talent involved still, but especially in those that allow, like,
but
technology.
You would go to the person who could pay the most, right?
Or, like, F1 racing, right? Like, that entirely relies on a really good driver plus car that go really fast and super reliable. That costs millions, man.
Brands and prestigious titles such as the Blood Knight, the Black Knight, or the Radiant.
Oh wait, isn't that what's her name again? Deathbreak or something like that?
Deathbreak. I don't know how to say her name actually.
Yeah,
when I was pulling for I was pulling on Opianus, and I got her at the exact same pull as I got him.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, Survey showed the image. I'm like, how do you even say that name? I don't know.
I still don't know.
Like I said before,
cool design,
this tournament is the personification of knighthood, the peak of 𝗏𝗪𝗪s. It is the best thing they can offer. Every time a major event is held, the capital would dock with 3 other nomadic cities nearby to get more visitors and to make the major event even more unforgettable.
The nomadic cities can all just dock with each other. So it's like you could have like a neighboring kingdom just come dock up beside you.
Yeah, we want to come and see the games, man. It's so cool, though. I am maybe a little bit too into this simply because it has to do with sports, like, kind of indirectly, but this is just like my field, you know? I feel kind of at home here.
Because in the recent decades, the Major has become one of the most anticipated sports events for people from all across Terra. It simply cannot be ruined by infected people on the streets, which is why they are forced to be relocated into dark city alleys, where foreign visitors wouldn't spot them, where the infected would be set out into harsh environment and starve. They would get so hungry, they'd eat a
horse.
The Major is the flagship of the 𝗏𝗪𝗪s economy. They bring in big investment, huge profit from merchandise, cosplay costumes, and a ton of revenue from advertisements. Knights are celebrated like superstars. They obtain more money and fame than any knights from the previous era, and that is what 𝗏𝗪𝗪s is all about. Congratulations, 𝗏𝗪𝗪. You went from chivalry to capitalism. Instead of raising the sword as a shield, they raised the sword for entertainment and profit. Maybe justice never existed in the first place.
Damn.
Well, that's enough for the nation of knights.
That could be such a good point for a character story, with them struggling with their identity and what they truly value in knighthood and stuff like that. Yeah, that's gonna spawn so many plot lines for characters. I can already see it.
And capitalism, let's take a visit to a nation that is still deep-rooted with classical culture and studies into its own past. Welcome to Lythanian, the land of arts and music. Lythanian is a superpower in the Terran heartland. Most of its inhabitants are classical music-loving 𝗏𝗪𝗪s. The nation is ruled by a rigid governing system of different Kreise, with 2 empresses as their acting leaders. This is the nation with an aggressive-sounding tongue and the longest swear word on Terra.
What the? We actually have this? Okay. Let me try to listen to it.
Dampfschifffahrtsgesellschaftskapitänswitwenversorgungskassen Mitarbeiter.
However, they aren't by any means
Accumulator.
aggressive.
Yeah.
They have the finest music concerts and historically longest study into the field of arts. In fact, their past ruler was once titled the most talented arts user on Terra. But please refrain from spelling his name or title. Don't ever do that, it brings bad luck. 𝙧𝙪𝙀 is also known for preserving and innovating classical music. And by innovating, I'm not talking about new orchestra pieces to enjoy. Well, they do that too, but I think you will understand it once I show it to you. This is how a battle with Ursa's army looks like. This is how a battle with Casimir's knights looks like. And this is how a battle with 𝙧𝙧𝙀 Army looks like.
The rhythm game.
Careful of music on the battlefield, especially when you face a 𝙧𝙧𝙀. Do you hear what I'm talking about? While other nations turn the battlefield into a bloodbath, 𝙧𝙧𝙀 turns the battlefield into an orchestra. 𝙧𝙧𝙀 arts is unique because centuries ago they combined sound with art, and today they have mastered it, turning music into weapons. And you know what the best thing is? They are one of the few nations that don't discriminate against the infected, allegedly.
Hey.
They treat them like brothers and sisters. They only discriminate against those who can't use arts. Infected people are sent into special facilities.
Different flavor of discrimination.
We have to discriminate against someone. We gotta fill the quota. Okay.
How else do I prove I'm the best if there's not someone who's the worst?
But God, imagine being born in this place and not being talented at art. You're fucked.
For arypathy treatment, well, the only drawback is that we don't get to see their infected family members once they are sent there, but knowing that they are being treated is good enough, right?
Yeah.
Don't ask where the infected went. I'm sure they are all living peacefully in their facilities and getting treated. I mean, what would a nation with the highest knowledge about arts do to those poor infected anyway? Doing research on them? Using them as arts amplifier? Come on, we are not talking about Colombia. Anyhow, as one of the culturally richest nations on the Terran heartland comes with some unique attractions that we simply cannot miss out on. 𝗔𝗟𝗟, the capital of 𝙧𝙧𝙀, a cultural heritage that is the Altstadt on this nomadic platform with their annual musical festival celebrating its liberal mindset and harmonious prosperity is a blessing for the eyes and ears. Wiesheim, a town famous for its music education and manufacturing of instruments. Everyone loves music in this town. In its center lies the Afterglow Hall, one of the most infamous places where musicals and orchestras are performed. This place used to be the arts amplifier of Terra's most powerful caster. And yes, I did say this place. He turned this entire building into his magical wand after all. Rumors even say that he turned the entire town in his arts medium. Now, what exactly did he use the arts medium for? That's a great question. We will get into that in a bit. But before that, let's have a history lesson about 𝙧𝙧𝙀, how it became what it is now, to be more precise, the true story of the strongest caster on Terra.
Who made this?
His design.
Here is 𝙧𝙧𝙀 in the year of 969. Everything is as is. The nation is ruled by different 𝗔𝗟𝗪. 𝗔𝗪𝗪 are the equivalent of states. Each 𝗔 has their own way of governing their subjects, but all 𝗔𝗪𝗪 are bound by the 𝗔𝗟𝗟𝙀, an arts contract. Imagine a magical contract that makes the 𝗔𝗪𝗪 and their Kurfürsten physically and mentally impossible to divide into sovereign nations. Other states can join the 𝗔𝗟𝗟𝙀, and their state's name would be written on the arts contract. Small reminder, joining the 𝗔𝗪𝗪 is easy, but leaving is virtually impossible, simply because of the complexity of the arts contract, and this is how 𝙧𝙧𝙀 acts as a single nation.
Gotcha.
I like that their binding contract is a literal musical piece, but it's also entwined into their magic system, so it's literally just a long-standing contract that can be played that binds you forever.
Yeah, very on theme, this place is, for sure. I was gonna say, they get you with the fine print. Like, anybody can join, but we'll never let you leave. And you also had better be good at playing anything, doing any sort of arts. Because if you're not, then you're not welcome. We're gonna drag you away and you'll never be seen again.
The nation itself is united under a strong arts contract. Every few years, the Kurfürsten of every 𝗔 would come together and vote for one noble ruler worthy to take up the role of the acting emperor. they shall govern the nation and make all the 𝗏𝗏𝗪 prosper. In actuality, it is still the 𝗏𝗏𝗪 and their nobles who held the real power, because they can keep the emperor's influence if they want to. In a way, the nation is officially united, but doesn't quite act like a united nation. For example, each 𝗏𝗏𝗪 has their own military that only acts under the order of their own kurfürst. Of course, if the entire nation is at war, then the emperor would request the unification of the forces of all armies, but even then, the head of the 𝗏𝗏𝗪 still has control over their own army. I know it is confusing, but that's just a fraction of Lithanian's old and rigid bureaucracy.
Look, they're all artists, okay? They will only move when they feel emotionally ready to do so. You know, and if it is beautiful.
This is Otto Dietmar Gustav von Urtica. He was a young and good lad, extremely gifted in music and arts. Dude was practically listening to the Bible in Viennese on the right ear and listening to all 600 classical Lithanian music pieces at 2 times the speed on the left ear. And he mastered all these music pieces in the span of 3 months. A prodigy child who also had the chance to get taught by the Castilian Lord of Liches. This is definitely gonna turn into a great relationship. However, Otto wasn't satisfied by all the knowledge he had gained. He looked way further into the future with an even bigger ambition than all of his peers. Every other nation was progressing relentlessly, while Lithanian was still holding on to its same old music and arts from centuries ago. And let's not forget its complicated political system that makes changes hard to begin with.
Makes me imagine that this dude is about to bring like progressive rock or something to this place, and everybody's minds are going to be blown.
The 𝗏𝙤𝗪 Gesetz turned out to be a hindrance. Siracusa, one of the 𝗏𝗏𝗪, has been voicing out its independence for decades, but the arts contract wouldn't let it happen, which turned into countless civil unrest inside Siracusa 𝗏𝗏𝗪. What is going to happen to Lithania in the next 20 or 30 years? Victoria has their steam knights, Iberia has made a pact with an advanced ocean civilization, and Ursus was becoming the new military powerhouse simply with their sheer brute force. Meanwhile, Lithanian is still too stubborn to progress and can't handle its inner conflicts. Otto was already thinking 2 steps ahead, and with the unknown future of his beloved nation, he vowed to become the greatest ruler ever, once he gets his chance to sit on the throne.
Yeah, of course.
Ob du meine Arbeit für richtig hältst, ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe, dass ich mich in diesen Jahren für dich eingesetzt habe, dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwendet habe im Dienste meines Volkes. Gib du jetzt deine Stimme ab? Wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin. And thus he was chosen by the 𝗏𝗏𝗪. First, he revamped the old rigid system. The 𝗏𝗏𝗪 and their kurfürsten gradually lost their political influence, while he centralized power for himself. Now, any normal person would look at this and criticize his abuse of power, especially the 𝗏𝗏𝗪 and their kurfürst, but not with Otto's regime. Not only did he say goodbye to the old system, he also brought to the common folk a prosperity they have never seen before, all thanks to his majesty's wisdom and knowledge. Soon enough, he earned himself the title 𝗏𝗏𝗪horn, the Horn of Genesis. But the most astonishing feat was him ending the political unrest of the Kreis Siracusa. 𝗏𝗏𝗪horn single-handedly managed to override the 𝗏𝗏𝗪 Gesetz and removed the name Siracusa from the contract.
Holy shit. So he was just that good in music that he actually did it?
Yeah.
The thing that binded you forever is now no longer binding you? Then yeah, go crazy.
Officially declaring the Siracusa as an independent nation, something no one believed to be possible. And for the next decades, he went on ruling over Lithanian. Everyone celebrated the rise of 𝗏𝗏𝗪horn, and he would go into history as the greatest ruler of Lithanian. If it were not for the atrocities he had committed in the coming decades. Remember the 𝗏𝗏𝗪 and their kurfürsten? They actually hated him. I know, right? Shocker. They lost their army, their influence, and their tradition. So to restore the glory of the good old Lithanian custom, they tried to stir civil unrest. Basically, they disobeyed 𝗏𝗏𝗪horn's order and were punished accordingly. The punishment for dissidents was cruel. Hakonson's leadership got worse from that point onwards. To expose and punish the opposing Kurfürsten, he enacted a group of loyalists who served as his personal secret police all over Lithanian. At the same time, a dedicated group of cult-like loyalists was gradually formed around him. They were drawn to His Majesty's madness like
you're
a
a good
moth.
dude when you've got a whole cult around you.
Yes, I am doing good right now. But maybe he doesn't even delude himself with those kind of thoughts. It's more like this nation is broken and needs to be fixed, and only I can do that. To secure its future, I'll do whatever it takes. Maybe that's more his mindset. It is so fascinating to see how this culture that revolves around arts is developing specifically around that one theme, comparatively to like how the other culture that we checked out before was developing around knighthood and chivalry, and then that sort of evolved into the economics and then sports. And yeah. It's so fascinating how different they can be while still existing within the same world and making a lot of sense for what they're revolving around.
Drawn by a candle, normal citizens could only see his cruel actions, and he was eventually coined a new title, the Witch King. Where the Witch King was busy killing off his political opponents, he became a professional hikikomori.
Pretty cool.
Not because he became awkward
his
around.
design is so cool too.
Yeah, he's just got, I don't know, this dude is dripped out, man.
People. It was because he was too invested in his arts research. It was like an obsession, as if he was close to finding the truth behind this world. One night, he took a large dose of extra-dimensional substance to gain new knowledge.
What?
He ascended into a realm outside of reality and
Just
saw
casually?
things that he would call the truth. The Witch King returned as a different person. He yaps about willing to do whatever it takes to prevent the looming end of this world by killing the creator personally. He became much more secretive about his research.
Bro was like, okay, fix the nation, check. Next thing, kill God.
The logical steps.
What is this dude on? How did he see arts? Just arts specifically. Him and who?
2B.
2B? Oh, yeah. I mean, 2B literally tells you what she's about at the very beginning of the game, too.
And a lot crueler when it comes to dealing with dissidents. The treatment for the infected got worse. While treatment facilities have practically turned into his research facilities, the Witch King started doing countless arts and Originium related research. To keep up with his demand, his loyal followers delivered him infected citizens to experiment on. If you got infected during the reign of the Witch King, you have automatically become His Majesty's arts
No, not testicular torch, no!
amplifier. Population of an entire town was found dead simply as a result of his art experiment. He also openly executed his political opponents by turning them into statues. The fear forever petrified to remind the common folk and his political opponents who the real boss was. The Witch King also spread his influence outside of Lithanian by following the colonialism trend of other superpowers such as Victoria. The Witch King took over control of
colonialism trend.
Hashtag colonialism. Wow. Can't wait to conquer more nations.
by establishing a puppet regime that followed his orders. Soon enough, the Gaulish Empire, the most powerful and influential nation in the Terran heartland during that period, proposed to turn Lithania into their vassal state. Trust me, they asked the Witch King very nicely and were definitely not full of themselves. It was the worst time to send out such a bold message, but the Witch King did not turn the envoys down. He turned them into statues and sent them back to Gaul, officially declaring war. This war will go into history as the Gallo-Lithanian War. At the beginning of the war, Lithanian took massive L's from Gaul. Not only did the Gaulish army breach deeply into Lithanian soil, they also took over 4 Kreise in the span of 4 months. However, all of this was simply because the Witch King did not participate in the war personally. He did show up eventually by greeting the Gaulish army with his artificially created catastrophe, which single-handedly wiped out the entire warship fleet.
Bruh.
And now you know what...
You just artificially make a catastrophe now? Doesn't that mean that you can basically just nuke any city that you want?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, goodness. With the sound of music?
The Witch King used these helms afterglow hall for. It was
Just
a
imagine
weapon
you're
of
an army out there, and all of a sudden you just hear some music wafting in, and you're like, uh-oh,
Wait,
they're covered.
why do I hear boss music?
Yeah, literally.
mass destruction. It brought such destructive power that Gaulish generals had to revisit their strategy, and as if that wasn't bad enough, Victoria and Ursus decided to join the war to bully Gaulish Empire while they were at the bottom and help Lithanian win the war. All three superpowers bullied Gaul into extinction. Victoria and Ursus took the most spoil out of the war, leaving Lithanian in ruin. Since the war mostly took place on Lithanian soil, and when peace was restored, the Witch King returned to his cruel tyranny and shut himself away inside his spire. At this point, the people in Lithanian had enough of his reign. The Kurfürsten revolted against the Witch King. With the help of their carefully crafted secret weapon, whom even the Witch King had no idea about, these two brave waifu materials breached through the defenses of the Witch King and at last managed to slay him. The fateful day will forever be marked as the liberation of Lithanian and celebrated as the September-Aufstand. The two who slayed their majesty have become the new official rulers and are known as the Twin Empresses. The Witch King's spire was torn apart. From its remnants, a twin tower was built, and the capital was renamed after it.
Ah, that's why we have the twin... I see. Twin spires, let's call them. To call the other thing, yeah.
𝗔𝗟𝗪𝙪𝙀𝙪. And
I like that you can tell like the aesthetic of the two also from the spires.
You know exactly which tower is whose, yeah. I mean, being the nation of art, obviously they have their own aesthetic choices. Like, that's definitely something they paid a lot of attention to. Not that it's connected in between the middle, in case they want to visit each other, you know.
Was built, and the capital was renamed after it, 𝗔𝗟𝗪𝙪𝙀𝙪. And that is how the tale of the Witch King ended, and how Lithanian stepped into the modern age. Let's have another look at the Lithanian of today, now that we have visited its past.
Oh, the Twin Empresses good?
The Twin Empresses have re-established the influence and bureaucratic system of the Kreise and their Kurfürsten. The infected are being sent to treatment facilities and usually never seen again. Congratulations, Lithanian, after 100 years we have come full circle. Absolutely fantastic and most praiseworthy. Nowadays it is forbidden to refer to the previous ruler as the Witch King, and the name is simply a taboo. Only artworks and stage plays that depict His Majesty's downfall and demonizes him are allowed to be published, while the new ruling empresses are doing their best to restore Lithanian to its former glory. And remember when I talked about the cult-like people who gathered around the Witch King?
Yeah.
The remaining loyalists of the Witch King were left with one motivation to keep them going: the revival of their beloved leader and restoration of his reign, for he is and will always be the true ruler of Lithanian. Some people will forever live in the fear of the past, while others strive to create the past glory by studying into the forbidden arts of their previous ruler, resulting in further meaningless suffering on the innocent. And that is how Lithanian, despite its advanced knowledge in arts, music and liberal education system, is still being haunted by its past shadow. Remember the Kreis Siracusa?
It is so ironic and such a good story, way to write your story. That the thing, that the place that is trying to advance and be in the future and teach people and educate people is still so incredibly stuck in the past, and it can't move forward. It's always going to haunt them forever. And even now, after all the quote-unquote improvements that have been made, things just aren't that much better. People are still being mistreated. We still act like we're advanced on the surface, but really, we're not. It's so true for many places in real life too.
Problems.
The one that was overwritten by the Witch King and then became an independent nation, that is our next stop. Ah, what a beautiful afternoon, sitting outside a restaurant, drinking wine, eating pasta, appreciating the opera performance on the street, not to mention the sweet dessert waiting to be served afterwards. What could possibly go wrong in such a sophisticated nation where the infected aren't discriminated against, and the only thing sharper than your fork is
Final Destination, no. Holy. Mafia City?
Welcome to 𝗔𝗟𝗪𝙪, where the mafia doesn't just influence the government, it is the government. The streets run red with Mariana sauce. Oh, wait, never mind. No, it's blood. Sorry. But don't let that scare you away. Underneath the constant family disputes, extortion, and friendly reminders to pay up on time, 𝗔𝗟𝗪𝙪 is a vibrant cultural hotspot. Historians, however, would argue that Syracusan culture is the result of constant influence from foreign nations. The elegant opera performance is a direct cultural heritage from Lithanian. You know, when Syracusa was still a Kreis of Lithania. Syracusa's legislation is brought by Columbia. Its tradition of delicious food and the faith in the church came straight from the holy influence of Laterano, so definitely a place worth visiting. Well, as long as you can turn a blind eye on the never-ending conflicts between different mafia families on the street that result in innocent civilians being killed in the crossfire, and Pharaohmoods in the form of wolf. These wolf-like Pharaohmoods love to play a game of battle royale. They have done it for centuries, and
Pharaohmoods are like the godlike beings that we saw before, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so, yeah.
they grew so tired of the fighting that they decided to change the rules. Instead of fighting each other, they picked their own mortal champions to fight in their stead. Basically, they have created their own game of fate, just less complicated. All in all, the 𝗔𝗟𝗪𝙪 of today is a delicious pasta with thorns grown on it. They have learned the finest aspect of other nations.
Those are the little enemies.
But what use of the legal system when the hands of the law are tied by an institution in ruins? What use does having faith in the church do if people keep dying when being killed? What reason is there to keep making pasta when the nation that praised chocolate pasta no longer exists?
No!
Okay, the last one was a joke. They should keep cooking those pastas. Well, things weren't always like this. At the beginning, 𝗔𝗟𝗪𝙪 was a simple tribe. They and the Lithanian tribes had troubles dealing with their friendly neighbors. So to be able to defend themselves from their neighbors, they proposed to join forces with Lithanian tribes. Through a long negotiation process, Lithanian tribes decided to make the Syracusan tribe a part of their Reich, and thus Syracusa has become a part of Lithanian. Not just officially, but also bound by the 𝗏𝙤𝙪𝙧𝙜𝙪.
No.
What Syracusa didn't expect was the social hierarchy they experienced through the next century. They were treated like the backwater cousins. Good enough to fight on the front line, but not good enough to get a seat at the cool kids table. They were seen as sword-swinging barbarians. Even after picking up Lithanian instruments and fine-tuning their artistic taste, they never quite shocked that whole primitive stereotype, basically second-class citizens. Dissatisfaction grew stronger over the years, and eventually the people of the Syracusa Kreis started protesting. They wanted to become independent. This of course was not taken lightly by the other Kreise, and they sent their forces to quench the unrest, which actually made it worse. Eventually the protests spread around the entire Kreis of Syracusa and evolved into a civil war. It was said that Syracusa Kreis has passed the point of no return. If it went
past the point of no return, this man. Oh my god, you're killing me, bro. So this is what we were talking about earlier with like discrimination against other people. And not just the infected this time. Because now you're just considered the backwater place. Bruh.
Yeah.
Not for the Witch King to step in, rewriting the good.
Although I guess it's kind of appropriate for the place that is so focused on arts and I guess achieving grand and high arts that they would have this high and snobbish attitude towards others and discriminate against others quite readily. I don't want to like, make any assumptions here, but I definitely feel like when it comes to like the classical music world or classical arts world, you could see a lot of that. It's pretty toxic
artists
sometimes.
Are some of the most like stuck-up people I've ever met.
Yeah, I wonder why that happens. I guess it's more like a refined taste and a preference, a massive preference towards certain things that maybe applies to other things.
The little bit I have dabbled into gallery art, which is not much because it turned me off pretty quickly going to art school. But the problem with being a gallery artist, and this is kind of the problem with art in general, is your art is whatever value you can convince someone that it is, right?
Yeah.
So when you're trying to make your living off of selling your artwork and having it hang somewhere, right? You have to convince someone that your art is the greatest thing to ever exist and that it's worth thousands of millions of dollars or whatever. Which means the people who are successful in gallery art are the people who can basically put themselves up on that pedestal and convince everyone else that they're up on that pedestal, right?
I see. Gotcha. So
Which
that's
is why it kind of builds this air of, I guess, I'm better than you because it kind of has to, because that's how they make money from it, right?
This arrogance, this ego, this love of your own art that you kind of have to need in order to even succeed, then bleeds out into many other aspects of your life. So that's why, like, yeah, I see. I understand now more about, like, the art people in my life and why they're so stuck up their own ass.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like, it definitely doesn't forgive the behavior of it, but you kind of get why a lot of those people are like that, right?
I mean, when I was playing golf, I had to believe, like, I was, like, the greatest in the world. Because you gotta fake it till you make it. If you don't believe in yourself, then what are you doing it for, right? But yeah.
100%, yeah.
Everything comes with pros and cons. And that's what I'm loving so far about the lore here, is we're showing both sides of the coin to every single place.
Yeah.
Where you're gonna have advantages and disadvantages in this grim, dark world full of just horrible shit. And we deal with it in our specific, unique ways.
Yeah, there isn't no like, oh yeah, that's the evil country over there that we're all afraid of, you know. That's the Fire Nation over in the corner, right? It's like everyone has good and bad. Everything kind of interacts differently and is very nuanced in that, which I think is really cool.
The only main constant that we've seen throughout every single place that we checked out is how the infected are treated, basically.
𝗔𝗟𝗟 and officially declaring the independence of 𝗔𝗟𝗟. And then, 𝗔𝗟𝗟 was free from the shackles of their previous masters. Finally they could govern for themselves. They have learned the best aspect of Lithonian, the appreciation for music and arts. So in the following decades, 𝗔𝗟𝗟 prospered under their new jurisdiction. Nah, just kidding. In the capital, someone decided to practice a little terrorism by blowing up the entire building, killing every governing head present, leaving 𝗔𝗟𝗟 as a nation without its government. And you know when that happened? Literally 2 days after the declaration of their independence. And then, total anarchy. 𝗔𝗟𝗟 was split into multiple mafia families who treated the nation like a giant monopoly board. Only instead of buying real estate, they blew those up and annexed entire cities. I mean, why bother building a government when you can just let the 12 most powerful mafia families run the show? This whole bombing and killing each other lasted, wait for it, it lasted 70 years. 70 years of constant backstabbing, gang wars, and all sorts of violent activities.
This also makes sense. We don't have any, like, ruling government body to control any of this. No police force big enough to handle how powerful all these families likely are. And these families themselves are also incentivized to take care of their own, because now there ain't no government to control anything, no laws that are really being enforced. We have to protect our people. Damn!
That resulted in the suffering of the common folk. Most people were forced to join one of the mafia gangs to gain protection and to somewhat live a normal life. Well, for 𝗔𝗟𝗟ans, normal was something else. Back in the days, as long as you didn't get shot on the street, anything can be considered normal. That is until 𝗔𝗟𝗟 Cecilia stepped in. 𝗔𝗟𝗟 Cecilia was like, alright, this whole burn everything to the ground thing is getting a bit old. How about we, stop killing each other for a change? Having finished her studies abroad in Laterano, because when the mafia is running your country, naturally you go study at Terra's Vatican for the holy experience. Cecilia came back and decided to play peacemaker. How? Well, she introduced a new system called 𝗏𝗏𝗪𝗏, guns and order. Sounds cozy, right? Cecilia didn't just convince the mafia to stop shooting each other every 5 minutes, she established a functional, semi-functional government. She even used the power of religion to help unite them. Like,
the power of Christ compels you! Well, religion is certainly it can be used in that way in order to help control people. Because if law isn't going to do it, then faith will.
If Jesus says we should stop murdering each other, then who are we to argue? Of course, if you didn't listen, she could still make you disappear in about 5 seconds. After 70 years of constant anarchy, 𝗔𝗟𝗪 finally...
This definitely didn't happen in the real world. 100% not.
Oh, no. That's certainly not a touchy subject at all. I can imagine her whispering into the ears of all the people that isn't going to follow that, being like, you know, this is between you and God. I'm just here to send him to you. Send you to him, you know? That'd be pretty badass, yeah.
Started to have some resemblance of peace. Sure, it's a fragile peace held together by bribes, shady deals, and occasional assassinations. But hey, we're just here for the past abilities, and for the next 60 years, things have been stable, especially now that you have got the Confederate Council and Supreme Court. Although both are basically just puppets for Cecilia's mafia-backed regime, so technically even a gavel strike can end a life. But hey, at least they pretend to care about civilian safety now. Of course, not every faction inside 𝗔𝗟𝗪 is satisfied with this peaceful system. New generations who think maybe the mafia shouldn't run everything, or maybe we should build a society where people don't get shot on broad daylight. What radicals, am I right? The Cecilia family eventually expanded its own business all across Terra, primarily in Colombia, because the smuggling was making them a ton of cash. Well, until the Colombian government took the matter a bit more seriously. The most prominent mafia clan, the Texas family, got wiped out due to being too unruly there, and that is when most of the Syracusan families returned back to their homeland. And that is pretty much where we are now. So would I recommend a visit to 𝗔𝗟𝗪? Absolutely, because the food is simply to die for. Our next stop is a pretty cold place, and it will take a bit until we arrive there. So in the meantime, why don't we have a little history lesson about a nation from the past, introducing the Gaulish Empire. If you ever look up Gaulish people in a search engine, you might have seen obscure results, such as why are Gaulish people so gay, so cringe, or so full of themselves, or bad at Victorian tongue. Don't be fooled by these misinformations. Haters don't want you to know, but Gaul used to be the superpower on Terra. Back in the days, it was the nation of the Liberis, you know, bird people. Gaul was known for their cultural influence and overwhelming military strength. Gaul was also the only nation in the Terran heartland that was able to withstand the Nightmoran invasions, and they kept expanding their borders by annexing neighboring city-states. They were the undisputed ruling nation, which was also why all the other neighbors even adopted their tongue. Basically, everyone spoke French. I know, right? Hellish time for those neighbors, worse than catastrophe and suffering from oropathy. Gaul's most important feat was achieved at the height of the Gallic era. Yes, the era was literally named after their nation. They put Lingones, their capital city, on a ginormous mobile plate, which was powered by Originium, and thus the first nomadic city was born. It was the beginning of a new era for the Terran civilization. Other nations were elated by this revelation, and thus Lingones was coined capital of Terra. This sparked the renaissance of Gaulish art, economic growth, and last but not least, their territory.
A very high for them.
Yeah, so it's only downhill from here, right?
Right.
Territorial expansion. However, Gaul's aggressive expansionism ultimately led to its own downfall under Emperor 𝗔𝗟𝗪 I. Oh, sorry, I read it wrong. His name is Corsica I, not Croissant. Anyway, he realized that after all these years of steady growth and expansionism, the nation has reached an all-time high. This all sounds pretty good for everyone. However, he and the head of the state were able to foresee a slow but inevitable decline of Gaulish influence. Due to the growing resentment and steady development of other superpowers, Ursus is aggressively expanding its territory and was about to start its 10th campaign on Casimir.
Yeah, spreading ourselves way too thin. That we're not creating stable economic structures and I guess self-sustaining countries out there that can help be more like outposts for us in order to continue our expansion. We're just doing the same thing the Great Roman Empire did. And we're gonna break in half Eventually. It's inevitable.
Years, Victoria has started a cruel trend by claiming unfathomable amount of land. Other nations felt the FOMO and followed suit.
The
You might know
FOMO.
it under the name of colonialism.
Hashtag
One of
colonialism.
Victoria's most successful colony being Colombia, simply because of its rich originium sources and rare occurrence of catastrophes, and Iberia was experiencing its golden age with their advanced fleet and new technology from the ocean. And this was the position Gaul was in the middle of, so they cooked a strategy. First, they made sure their biggest rival would think twice before invading Gaul by supporting the independence of Colombia, which made Victoria very furious, and they tried everything in their power to prevent the independence. Ultimately, Victoria failed to prevent the independence of Colombia. Iberia does not pose any real threat to Gaul, since they are more into exploring the ocean and bullying Victoria at naval warfare. Like they say, the enemy of your enemy is your friend. Ursus at that time had their hands full dealing with Casimirs, so Gaul planned out their next step to keep their grip on the power. They needed to unify their people, and to do so, they needed a common enemy, a nation no one would help if being invaded. They took Lithanian on their side and sent out envoys to give outrageous requests, which resulted.
And that's where they fucked up.
Yep.
Yeah. Probably during a different era, definitely not under the Witch King of all people. Yep.
Yeah.
I can
The
see
most
the idea
stable
for the
man,
plan,
the
though.
Witch King he was.
Although I think the approach was horrific. Like, become our vassals, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
no, buddy. It's refreshing to see that the country didn't just fall apart immediately. Like, somebody actually realized what was happening and then tried to stabilize the situation. It's
They
in
just made a
trying
poor
to
choice.
stabilize that situation
Yeah.
that it caused the inevitable breaking of the entire state that we had before. But honestly, that's kind of usually how it
Yeah.
goes. It's not like everybody in the situation is dumb to what is happening. Like, they know, but like, it reaches a critical mass where it's you can't do anything about it. You're just fucked.
Resulted in the envoys turning into statues. Now that we have discussed this historical part from the point of view of Gaul, I can say that it was all intended. They knew their proposal was bound to cause Lithanian to react aggressively, especially under the Witch King's rule. So that is when
Really?
the Gallo-Lithanian War broke out. Gaul was absolutely sure that no other nation would assist Lithanian, until the Witch King participated in the war personally and showed Gaul what a real aura looked like. That is when the other two superpowers noticed the decline of Gaul.
Well, yeah, if
They
there are
took
neighboring
advantage of it.
nations that see that your army is getting really their shit kicked in, then yeah, they're gonna take advantage of that. They're gonna send their armies to assist and just trample you out for good. This is a really bad position we put ourselves in. We've done this to ourselves. We have underestimated the Witch King severely.
They acted accordingly and officially declared war on them. Both Victoria and Ursus joined forces to assist Lithanian.
We are kind of
What
already
can I
made
say? What
enemies
was
of
supposed
Victoria,
to be a one-sided, swift war turned into a world war that is known as the War of the Four Nations. Gaul lost the war in the end and paid the heaviest price by being disintegrated. Majority of the war spoils were being taken by the Ursus Empire. Victoria, on the other hand, took the vast land of Gaul as well as its capital, and from that day onward, Lingones was renamed to Londinium. And this act made Victoria the new leading nation on Terra, and Gaul will forever be seen as a superpower from the past, their subject now spread across Terra, still trying to restore their once great nation. And we have arrived at our destination. Welcome to 𝗏𝗟𝗪. It is a nation that was built by a pharaoh in the past, which is why the inhabitants of this place are pretty religious. After all, what better way to show your faith than naming your own country after the pharaoh itself? 𝗏𝗪𝗪, a place encircled by snowy mountains, mostly known for being an introverted nation that uphold their traditional customs even in this modern age. I do have great news. Recently 𝗏𝗪𝗪 has opened up. What was just a boring collection of tribes is becoming a new tourist destination. Even though 𝗏𝗪𝗪 has opened up for tourism, visiting them still feels like we are the tourist attraction and not the other way around. I guess we still need to break the ice. Also, this is probably the only snowy place that is suitable for a vacation. You ask me why? I don't know, maybe because the other snowy place grows rootless flowers, has weird pitch black snow, and ursine KGB units trying to kill you. In 𝗔𝗟𝗪, the only thing you need to be wary of is the cold environment that might pose some danger. Don't get yourself frozen, it would lead to slipping and falling into a hole. Trust me, this kind of thing occurs on a regular basis, even to locals. Anyway, overall 𝗔𝗟𝗪 is a very peaceful nation. You can tell that by looking through its history. Literally nothing happens for centuries on end, and they never bothered developing either. Why would they, when this place is so peaceful and no other nation has any interest because it is so cold and isolated?
That makes sense. There's no reason to progress. And it is an unfortunate fact of history that so much technology was developed for war, because of war, because of conflict and bloodshed, that we have some of the things that we use today in order to keep the peace.
I mean,
or to live good lives.
Technology is one of those things where it's like, how do you invent something really quickly when someone points a big gun at your head and you have to make a bigger one?
Yeah, exactly. So a peaceful nation living in a place that nobody wants and they're just happy to live their lives the way they are, technology progression is going to come down to a bit of a standstill, a bit of a turtle crawl, if you will. Sort of similar to like fantasy settings with magic. Like they could be set in a more modern era, quote unquote, but they wouldn't have the technology that we have simply because there's no need to. Just use magic, duh.
Yes.
This place really started to embrace the outside world after a shift of power. You see, 𝗔𝗟𝗪 is ruled by 3 clans, the Browntails, the Palaroaches, and the 𝗔𝗟𝗟, both...
Oh, I recognize the guy on the right here. I think one of his banners was like near the very beginning of the game. I think I got him.
I think
like a tank or something.
𝗔𝗟𝗟 Altar is the reason that Arknights in the last month was like at the almost the top of the revenue.
Really?
in China. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Browntails and Palaroaches are conservatives, while the 𝗔𝗟𝗟 are the only clan that has contact with the outside world. Fast forward a few centuries, you'd think 𝗔𝗟𝗪 would have enjoyed some peaceful isolations, right? Well, not quite. See, while the rest of the world was out there inventing things like industry, Ólafur 𝗔𝗟𝗟, the patriarch of the 𝗔𝗟𝗟s, decided it was high time 𝗔𝗟𝗪 jumped on the modernization bandwagon. Why stay in the mountains making religious artifacts when you can build factories and railways? Especially the railways, they really needed to build a strong economy. Luckily, he had some connections to the Victorian Empire, which gave him the idea to model the whole country on Victorian business management. A classic foreign influence for better profits move. But the Browntails and the Palaroaches hated the idea. I mean, Ólafur wanted railways to be built. Railways on this sacred land? On the holy land of 𝗔𝗟𝗪? They plotted an assassination on Ólafur, and through a complicated political game, Ólafur died in a train accident. How ironic, he always wanted more of those. The 2 conservative factions pushed the blame to a family that was allied with the 𝗔𝗟𝗟s and claimed that they betrayed them, and also ostracized the 𝗔𝗟𝗟 family from the tri-clan governing system. They said the death of their head was a punishment from 𝗔𝗟𝗪. If I were born in 𝗔𝗟𝗪, I'd actually believed in that shit. The whole incident made 𝗔𝗟𝗪 more isolated than before. That was until one man returned after studying abroad. Because that's what future leaders always do. They leave their nation in chaos behind to find enlightenment from the outside world and bring their teachings back for salvation. And Theodos 𝗔𝗟𝗟 returned from his internship in Victoria. He pushed modernization and foreign trade. He even had the balls to mine near Mount Carlin. It is considered one of the most sacred places in 𝗔𝗟𝗪. Naturally, the conservatives were not thrilled. Tensions boiled over when the great elder of the Winebear court was poisoned and both sides prepared for civil war. But before blood could be spoiled, Anya, the saintess, descended from Mount Carlin and created a miracle which halted.
So this was the character you were talking about earlier with the main character's backstory, right? There's the saintess and there's us.
No. This is a different character.
Then why are they the same name?
Priestess.
A priestess. God damn it. Just another holy figure.
The fighting. In the end, the clans unified under her rule, with the 𝗔𝗟𝗟s securing their victory. while 𝗔𝗟𝗪 publicly spun the whole affair as a peaceful resolution. I know all of this sounds very coincidental and unexplained, not to mention the perfect timing of Anya turning the tide and preventing a full-scale civil war. Well, it was all thanks to their Fairmood goddess 𝗔𝗟𝗪, who actually never left 𝗔𝗟𝗪. Ever since she disappeared, she has been on incognito mode, observing by working as a part-time housemaid in the high
The literal god that created our place was just chilling as a housemaid? My god, of course.
priest palace. And with new people coming into power, there will be new agendas, and one of those agenda is to build a weapon factory establishing trade with foreign nations, so that 𝗔𝗟𝗪 can finally participate in the global economy. They started importing tons of metals and other resources from their friendly neighbor, Victoria.
I mean, when you see a nation start importing a ton of metal and iron, it's like, what are you guys doing over there?
What
you're
you
just
building? What you got? Yeah.
You're just building train tracks? Definitely, yeah.
Throughout this journey, I have mentioned the nation Victoria a handful of times already, and now it is time to finally have a proper introduction. Mostly populated by felines with a strong British accent, check. Known for their past colonialism that influenced countless other nations, check. Was once the world-dominating superpower on Terra, check. Is now on decline because of its complex political altercations, which is killing the nation from the inside, check.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a truth for so many countries currently in the world, where we just can't seem to stop fighting amongst each other, that everybody else just gets ahead. And the world keeps on moving on. But, you know, hey, that guy has more money than me.
My dear visitor, welcome to the Victorian Empire, the carbon copy of today's United Kingdom, but with more inequality, competitive racism against the infected, game-changing colonialism, offensive place names. Last but not least, a big gap between the common folk and the nobles. Victoria stands as one of the nations with the most profoundly impactful history, a legacy so vast and far-reaching that one would be hardly pressed to find any other nation with such cultural influence, military might, or dare I say, sheer bloody mindedness. So, let's commence forth on this marvelous journey through its splendid historical importance. Pardon for my Victorian tongue. Before Victoria became an empire, there was this fertile region devoid from dangerous beasts and catastrophes. One day, a tribe of ancient 𝗔𝗟𝗪s discovered this place and saw the potential of it. They decided to call this place their new home. Over the next few decades, other nomadic tribes and settlers joined their party. Now let's be clear, this wasn't a real nation at that time yet. It was more like a big campsite village run by the 𝗔𝗟𝗪s, who were still doing nomadic things. This kind of semi-nomadic lifestyle didn't last long until it became old-fashioned, so the people wanted a change, which resulted in a dispute of different lifestyles. There were two 𝗔𝗟𝗪 houses representing the two opposing lifestyles. One of them wanted to follow the trend of monarchy with a clear social hierarchy and imperial rules. Back in that era, it was a trend for nations to be established like that, because Sargon, the superpower at that time, was structured with a monarchy ruling over its common folk. You know, the old time when slavery and peasants working for the nobles was trendy. On the other hand, the opposing 𝗔𝗟𝗪 house wanted to keep their nomadic lifestyle. Now, this could have gone the usual route of bash each other with rocks until one's leader dies a brutal death. But no, surprisingly, the 𝗔𝗟𝗪s decided to split in peace. The monarchists took a nice fertile valley and said,
they actually know how to communicate?
We are a kingdom now, let's call it Victoria.
Surely this
While
will
the
last.
conservatives kept their nomadic lifestyle and wandered through the land until they found a region fit to settle, which will be named Terra by the future generations. Both houses lived peacefully for a few decades until they entered the Common Era. Remember the Khagan and his boys? That's right, they also decided to invade the two Victorian kingdoms to fulfill their coming-of-age practice. And like any other over-ambitious big brother, Victoria decided that protecting Terra was in both houses' best interest, but it really meant annexing Terra. The official record written in flowery Victorian handwriting claimed it was all like a tea party. But actually, Terra was taken over by force. Of course, this did not suit the 𝗔𝗟𝗪 house of Terra, so take a guess what Victoria's solution was. force Terra's ruling family to bend their knees, but keep their fancy titles. Because, you know, paperwork is hard. The king of Terra got renamed and was told to be happy with his nobility. I'm sure that went over really well. But hey, now Victoria is reunited after all this bloodshed and sacrifice, so it was all worth it. There is no way it would turn into a future conflict from the inside.
It's almost like taking it like this would lead to some sort of deep-rooted hatred between, you know, two Dracos.
Maybe.
Feel like maybe we should have talked a little bit more.
And for the next few centuries, the Victoria Empire was ruled by the Draco houses peacefully. However, all of this changed when the House of Cards in Sargon fell, which triggered a massive purge on their ruling race, the Aslan. Not a single family member was spared, even distant relatives were targeted. One noble family of the Aslan house managed to flee from Sargon and requested the Victorian royal house for shelter. And as we have established, the monarchy system of Victoria was a carbon copy from Sargon, so in a way, the Draco House were admirers of the Sargon Empire. With open arms, they welcomed the Aslan family into their royal house as permanent guests. I mean, what could they do to harm the Victorian Empire, right? They're just a bunch of glorified felines who lost their entire livelihood and most of their family members at home. They are just the nice guests at the dinner table.
Let me guess. Isn't the majority of the Victorian Empire felines right now? I don't think this ends well. I think maybe the people who you copy the system from know exactly how the system works.
They wouldn't take over the throne, right? Over the next few years, the Aslans became extremely popular among the Victorian common folk because the Aslans were a family of chads. They treated people with respect and helped the poor. In other words, foreign deeds for the Draco house, and with the people on the Aslan's side, they started a palace coup against the Victorian Dracos.
How many coups d'etats have we had throughout this one video, man? Ruling bodies mistreating their population, the populace, the citizens, the people who give them power, who empower the nation. Maybe you should treat them nicely. I don't know.
You would think, yeah. Power goes to one's head pretty fast, I think.
Big brain.
Succeeded without much resistance. The Terra house, on the other hand, decided to resist, but ultimately signed a double monarchy rule agreement with the Aslan house, and from that day onward, both the Draco house and the Aslan house ruled Victoria together, peacefully. That is, if we can count out all the political power games and conspiracies constantly happening in the background. In any way, the Aslans brought an age of peace and prosperity, and everything developed during that period. The Victorians were the first to establish the wide usage of originium crystal, starting the industrial revolution of the crystallization age. They quadrupled their factory production, created an abundance of jobs, school-educated the masses, and they built railways for faster transportation throughout the nation. They were finally able to travel through all the places with ridiculous names: Twat, Dick Place, Cockmouth, Penis Stone, Sheraton, County Hillcock. Oh hey, look, that's Londinium. It was like Victoria was just figuring out how to turn their people into more efficient cogs in a massive economic machine. That good old 19th century industrial charm where everyone's a child laborer and your lungs are slowly turning into soot. But on Terra, people just got infected and got oropathy, which was definitely not the best way to live in Victoria, but hey, they had prosperity. This era was called the Victorian era. Thanks to all the industrialization, Victoria has slowly become one of the superpower that even nations like Gaul had to consider a serious rival. Classic French versus England lore. And that is when Victoria invented something out of the ordinary. They called it colonialism. It is when you claim a foreign land yours and start exploiting its resources, often in the name of Victoria or the betterment of uncivilized people, even if the locals didn't ask for it. I mean, what are they gonna do about it, right? Victoria got big cannons, endless supply of army, and tea. And I haven't even mentioned the Steam Knights. Imagine an originium-powered cattle that can shoot out missiles and has one of the strongest physical attacks known to man, condensed into a thick power armor. Now imagine it being piloted by the most patriotic soldier. That is what one Steam Knight is made of. They are tasked to take orders directly from the parliament's aristocrats to protect the king and the country.
Design is really
These
cool
heavily
though.
armored fellows look pretty big, but do not confuse mass with imprecision and sluggishness. Steam Knights have extremely high reactions and accuracy in hitting their targets. Combined with their thick and heavy armor, they are pretty much unstoppable once they have
We literally
locked in.
have Space
But it doesn't
Marines
stop
Victorian
there.
era.
These Steam Knights can also leap into the air and perform a freaking Gundam attack. Throughout history, the Steam Knights have been proven to be Victoria's strongest military assets. Their war efforts have been engraved into legends and folktales. Fast forward a few decades, colonies of Victoria could be found everywhere. If a plot of land can hold a boot, then it should belong to Victoria, was a famous Victorian saying from that period of time. And as you might have guessed, the colonists weren't seen as equal to Victoria. The constant mistreatment over the years made the biggest colony, Columbia, revolt against its own master. Victoria took the matters extremely seriously and sent their fleet to stop the civil unrest. Funny enough, the independence movement was in the interest of Gaul, so they sent Columbia direct military aid and turned the simple civil unrest into an actual full-scale war. Thanks to Columbia's smart strategy and Gaul's direct support, Columbia was able to win the war and declare its independence. Victoria had to accept it because of its own affairs it had to deal with at home. Imagine losing to your own colony only because of foreign interference.
Too much going on. They're like, fine, I can't worry about you.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's every other nation to worry about currently surrounding you, so can't waste too many resources in any singular battle, which ends up creating the deadlock here. Gaul just happens to be there still, so that's why Columbia is able to, well, gain their independence, but after that, things are going to change a little bit. But I suppose Columbia will grow into a nation strong enough to fend for themselves.
Victorian royal house was furious about this matter, but right after the Columbian Declaration of Independence, Rimbilliton also jumped out of the line and declared their independence, which Victoria also failed to suppress. And to make matters worse, Victoria just lost a major naval war against Iberia, losing a large portion of their warships.
Still haven't learned about
However,
Iberia.
Despite all of this, it did not deter Victoria from wanting to become the world-dominating empire. Despite all the previous loss, the Victorian Empire kept inserting their geopolitical might to gain influence. They basically bullied smaller nations, mostly in the name of peace and security, like leading the Grand Crusade against 𝗏𝗏 simply by declaring them as the biggest threat of all Terran inhabitants. Let's be xenophobic. It's really in this year. Let's find a nasty sarcasm tribe, those infected horde to fear. There's no more fiendish neighbors since the Steam Knights came to call. Let's learn to love our empire by purging one and all. We know we ought to hate them. They're different, you see. We've read of all their sins in history and decree. The folks that fought in 𝗏𝗏 told us how it's got to be. The gospel truth was forged in wars that we declare as free. Let's wipe out their last stronghold. They're better off oppressed. We'll serve them up a genocide they never will forget.
Holy
the
shit.
first catastrophe proved that they're a dangerous lot. So it is our duty to take them down, destroy the plot. You see, 𝗏𝗏s can never be as good as felines here. We're noble and industrious, the best on Terra sphere. So step aside, 𝗏𝗏s, we are ready for your worst. We know you try to raid us, enslave us or degrade us, or slaughter us and invade us, unless we crush you first.
Oh my goodness.
For the
That
following
was
days,
amazing.
Victoria
Mad props to you, dude. Rob's going above and beyond for this video. Hell yeah.
I know.
only picked small bones because of the previous major losses they tanked. It was only during the Gaul-Lithanian War that they noticed the decline of Gaul, so to take political revenge on Gaul, they allied themselves with Ursus and Lithanian. As we know, the war resulted in an absolute victory and the end of Gaul. You helped my colony rebel? I'm gonna fuck your whole country from behind. Victoria took over the majority of Gaul's fertile land and officially claimed to be the new dominant nation, leading to a new era of peace and prosperity for the next few decades. But this era of prosperity didn't last long. A slow decline was happening in the background. While the royal house burned cash like coal, the wars were dragging on. Spoils were not split evenly. The rich were getting richer and the poor were getting poorer. The situation came to a peak when their king tried to raise the tax for the aristocrats. The aristocrats responded by losing their collective minds. They didn't just refuse, they decided to whip up a popular uprising. That's right, the rich folks got the peasants to overthrow the king. He was promptly executed, publicly hanged in his own royal garden. Don't ask me how. The aristocrats somehow did an Uno reverse card on their majesty and made the people of Victoria think he was the reason why their nation is on the decline. And with the king gone, the 8 dukes, Victoria's regional governors, gathered inside Londinium, you know, to fill the power vacuum. In other words, to take over Victoria for themselves. And if you think this was already dirty enough, get ready for what they did next. These dukes passed some new laws, making sure that no other noble could waltz into Londinium without special permission. It was a power move, plain and simple. They wanted to make sure that no one else could challenge their grip on the empire. But hold your tea, this wasn't the worst thing. As we all know, bad leaders create bad times, and bad times create dangerous political agendas. Remember the Tyrants? The ones forcefully assimilated into Victoria Kingdom centuries ago and then were never treated equally?
Ones,
they remember too. These Terra nationalists, or pro-Draco monarchists if you prefer, are still clinging to that dream of independence like it is their last shred of dignity, and they have been
It's almost like forcefully taking that away from them and like create some sort of deep-rooted hatred within them that they remembered for a very long time. That definitely didn't happen.
Preparing for revolt for a very, very long time. The moment anyone from Victoria tries to tell them otherwise, it is pretty much Victorian detected, opinion rejected. Expect them to throw a ton of stones at Victorian soldiers too. They absolutely hate being suppressed by Victoria and have had just about enough of being treated like second-class citizens. Actually, that is still not the worst thing. Yep, it gets even worse. One of the dukes tried to take over the parliament in Londinium. This act made the other dukes anxious, so they came up with a brilliant solution. Instead of working together to prevent the success of the coup, they hired external mercenaries. Let me tell you, the gun they hired were not small, it was big guns, the 𝗏𝙬 Military Commission to be exact. These 𝗏𝙬 mercs were hired to restore order in Londinium. You heard that right. They hired 𝗏𝙬 mercenaries, the same 𝗏𝙬 whose homeland Victoria torn apart in the past. This is like hiring the guy you just beat to the ground to help you clean up your own house. Surely nothing could go wrong, right? I mean, hey, the 𝗏𝙬 Military Commission did wipe out the rebels. They just went a step further by stabbing the dukes who hired them in the back and taking over Londinium for themselves.
What the fuck? What? This is a big brain move. Let's go. Of course, we'll save on costs this way. They don't even have a home anymore because we burned it down. Perfect. Holy shit, man. What are their decisions? What are these decisions being made?
They then threw quite a big party, because they brought a lot of Sarkas tribes along the way, and while they had the Victorian factories and technologies with them, they built one of the most terrifying weapons Terra has ever seen, the Shard. Not to be confused with the real Shard in London. This one is an airship capable of creating artificial catastrophes from a safe distance, and with that, we are back in the present, the Victoria of today.
So essentially we just built them a super destroyer that can glass the planet at any moment. What have we done?
A nation with rich history, but is now only a shadow of its former glory. They have lost pretty much everything. The belief of their citizens have been trampled for years by the dukes and merchants. Now that the king is gone, the nobles are no longer unified under one ideology. Of course, it was never really unified in the first place, but ever since the Londinium crisis, this problem has been out of control. Their feared military has become a myth and legend because they themselves abandoned their most powerful allies, so no one came to save during such a crisis. Now, it is a nation that can't run its own capital city and doesn't even have a leader. Now, I know what you are dying to.
So So Gaul rose and then fell, and Victoria took their place, and then they rose and then fell, and now I guess it's just empty, and I guess the new people, who were they? The 𝗔𝗟𝗪? Were they here? Just built a super destroyer.
Were the military that they came, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we really fucked up. Although, I think, I don't know exactly, like, British history, but I'm pretty sure something quite similar happened there, of like,
yeah, I think so. I don't
several,
know.
like certain nations came in, they took over the islands, and then other people came, took over those islands, and then barbarians came, took over those islands, and it was always just a back and forth between everybody.
Ask, is Victoria still worth visiting?
That's kind of my understanding of European history in general. It's just everyone conquering each other.
Yeah. Well, that being said, it's not just Europe. That was kind of the case everywhere,
definitely
basically.
Here are the facts. If you want to take a nice stroll down the street in Londinium, let me warn you, these streets might not be safe. You might end up meeting a Terran loyalist. To avoid being questioned about your political stance, you have to be dressed like a Terran. Then again, the likelihood to meet a Victorian patriot is also pretty high. In that case, expect a nice beating from them. But wait, what if you dressed like you support Victoria? Then you will get knifed by Terra nationalists from every direction. You might just stay inside, but then you will get kidnapped by the 𝗔𝗟𝗪, and they will send you to their forced labor camp. Not because they are racist or anything. Oh wait, never mind, they are kinda racist. Let's not just talk about the people. Let's also take a glance at the architecture of the city. Don't forget that Londinium is Terra's oldest nomadic city. In other words, the city is of huge historical significance with a lot of old buildings. Some of those buildings and pillars are a little bit too brittle, so don't try to push those, you might accidentally kill some innocent felines. And how could I forget the constant artillery bombardments? Those gigantic cannons on Londinium's thick and impenetrable walls are perfectly positioned facing inwards. Yeah, that's because the Castilian mercs took over those, and they have been firing bombshells after bombshells to get rid of the internal conflicts. They don't even care if their own people fall victim to these attacks. And if you were hoping for some peace and quiet outside of the capital, I got some bad news for you. The reed fields out there look pretty, right? You better tell that to the Terra nationalists. So, all facts considered, you should probably not visit Victoria at this current stage. We sadly missed its peak when it was still cool to take a visit and study there. With that being said, we have traveled through half of Terra, and I gotta say, this has been quite a journey so far. Exploring the history of so many nations, from the militaristic might of 𝗔𝗟𝗪 to the isolated but peaceful 𝗔𝗟𝗪, from the corporate-driven technocratic 𝗔𝗟𝗪s to the classical music enthusiastic 𝙏𝙤𝙪, and the once mighty but now fractured Victoria, each place we visited offers a unique blend of triumphs and tragedies, reflecting the ups and downs of their history. However, as we have traveled through all these places, I think it was evident that the shadows often overshadow the light. 𝗔𝗪𝗪's radiant glow of modernism blinding us from looking through its dark facade, just like 𝗏𝗏𝒻's cultural vibrancy being displayed in front of its city underbelly. The bad often lurks just beneath the surface. The exploitation of the infected in 𝗏𝗏𝒻 reveals a grim reality of commodification and expendability of the workforce, while 𝗔𝗟𝗪 with its brutal military expansion highlights a history steeped in expansionism and power. The lavish lifestyle of nobles has always been a stark contrast with the peasants all across Terra, and in all of these exploitations, it is always the same groups of people who get victimized, the infected and the common folk.
Exactly, that's what I said. The common element between every single nation, it's always going to be the infected. Always taken away, used for something. Something bad.
Yeah.
Now, I know it all sounds doom and gloom, so why would anyone even want to get into the lore? Well, I think I'm not speaking only for myself when I say I'm kind of a masochist.
Okay. To speak at least from my perspective, I wouldn't say that I'm a masochist. I do enjoy, though, I guess dark fantasy as well as the grimdark sci-fi. Simply because, well, my reasoning for enjoying it is because it offers a place for stories to happen where you can truly see, like, humanity at both its best and its worst. And I think that there is beauty within that. And there's a lot of inspiration that I can find from stories like this. I also just, in general, find them much more interesting than other stories that usually just end up pretty hunky-dory with a nice and happy ending. Because, you know, the world doesn't really work that way.
No, I agree completely.
What I said at the very beginning still applies here too. The amount of political intrigue that we've been introduced to here, and all these different facets of these empires interacting internally as well as externally, consequences of actions that they have done throughout their history coming back to bite them in the ass in ways that are different here and there. But all of these things coming together, culminating into the world that we're experiencing now is just so fascinating for me to see. As I guess I just enjoy history in that sort of aspect.
I love how interconnected it is. Like I said at the beginning, it's like you see Ursus building up the giant army, so the other people start getting scared and start doing their own armies, and then they start fighting each other, and then it's like everyone starts dogpiling on the weaker one, and then everyone else is spread thin because they've been fighting everyone else. It's like you see all that history, so then you have the ones who found their independence and how their entire kingdom has influences from all the people that they separated from. Yeah. I just think that's really cool.
It is very cool. And now I'm starting to understand why something like Enfield has such a vast economic system to it. Because this is so directly tied to Arknights and the lore that all of these things mean so much to them. Where normally in a game like this, you would think that people would really care about it. But I don't know. I guess maybe the average Arknights user, average Arknights lore enjoyer was probably thinking on the same lines as I do, that this stuff is just fascinating. You know, it's just really cool to see. And it's an experience that I haven't really seen any other gacha game really offer.
I've been having so much fun digging into just the Arknights lore as a whole. So
this is very promising. I didn't know what to expect, but this is great. I'd love to see more.
Okay, anyway, amidst this bleak world lies a certain fascination. I think the lore of Arknights is, in a way, resonating with us. It makes us want to delve even further into its narrative of suffering, tragedy and redemption, whether through the epic tales of entire nations or the intimate struggle of individual character. The emotional depth of this world captivates us. Maybe it is this complexity that kept us delving deeper. Or maybe it is because of its blend of despair and resistance that reflects our own experience. I think it goes without saying that a lot of Terra's history has similarities with our world. Man, when lore writers start copying from each other, the infected just...
And God has to come up with some new patch notes this time around. Gotta change things around. We can't copy from Arknights, man.
Like any other minority groups in our society endure systematic injustice, their difficulties often overlooked in favor of those in power and rich. The history of Terra is littered with examples of nobility evading crimes where the infected and poor suffered under it. And this really makes one think. It really confronts one with the uncomfortable truth about our reality. The struggles of the weak are often ignored in the face of the powerful. Well, we reap what we sow. A reminder that the consequences of our actions shape the world around us. Despite the widespread suffering, we challenge ourselves to resist our own satisfaction and gain. Does our hope have to be sown upon somebody's sorrow? We have a choice: to confront the monsters we have created, or to become passive observers in a world that feels like hell on earth. And with that being said, I truly wish people can come together to achieve bigger things, because the only people benefiting from conflict are those who sit at the top. If the people on Terra cannot unite as one, then there is no hope in resolving the inevitable apocalypse, which will be the second half of our journey. We will be taking a stroll into the deep, looking at a threat that might flood the entirety of Terra, a looming threat from the north that even the knowledge of it can pose danger. Of course, we will also visit the most advanced nation on Terra, and at last, we will gaze upon the stars. This has been the first part of Arknights Lore So.
They've put out the part 2 yet, but I'm sure these videos take forever to make. But I hope that they do. But just this video alone, I think, really highlights why I think this world is so fascinating.
I think the video on the right here that's being suggested is also another part of why it's so fascinating. But
I mean,
it's got many kinds of appeals here.
I mean, I said the thing that drew me in originally was the characters. Well, those aren't the characters that I personally find appealing. There are a lot of characters in Arknights, so it is a wide appeal for sure.
The amount of world building here is surprising for a gacha game. Most gacha games are kind of just there to be a quick cash grab, but this one has a lot of thought put behind it, a lot of care into how the world is presented. Even though I feel like maybe you can't really, see this and fully understand it by just the mobile gameplay of the tower defense.
I mean, that's true to an extent, but even then, like you see in some of those gameplay clips that he shows, it's like when you're fighting in Ursus, you've got the big Ursus units and that they fight differently than versus like, since I joined, right, I've been doing the start of the story, which is in Ursus, but then there was an event going on, which is fighting against the Seaborn. So it's like, those units are completely different than the Ursus units, and the environments and the environmental hazards are completely different there than they are in the other area.
Gotcha.
So it's like, you still see a lot of that through gameplay, even if the gameplay is that kind of cute chibi art style.
I can accept that. I think I will clarify with, it doesn't do it for me. And
that's fair, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, tower defense is still tower defense, so...
I actually want to see it happening, in like a 3D environment, which hopefully
I mean, that's why the rise
offer.
of 3D gachas has taken over a lot of these traditional 2D ones, which is understandable because 3D gameplay, and I'm personally an action combat fan too, so that appeals to me more. But I have been having a lot of fun with the Arknights gameplay, I won't lie.
I can probably yap on and on about how much I enjoyed this video, not gonna lie, and all the different nations and whatnot, but I think it's best that we wrap things up here with your recommendations for what we should check out next, if you guys are interested in seeing more from us. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Hope you guys enjoyed your time here. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and Sermi and I will catch you in whatever we check out next. Later, dudes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.